covering the world of nonfiction and the human connection that stems from sharing the stories of our past. The importance of the emotional presence, and what we hope for the future in his talk, The Person Next to You. Tom, please.
Look, it goes without saying that last night in Hong Kong, mobs attacked pro-democracy protesters. And the protesters, some of you may be them, widely viewed as peaceful. And what everyone talks about the most, though, is how well they recycle. In contrast, we see the images of the attackers. They're beady-eyed, they're angry, they're screaming, they're pushing. They're definitely not recycling. There's a horrifying video. It's a man with chains draped over his body. And in his hand, he's got a steel rod. He's beating this guy that's on the ground. There's blood everywhere. I have to confess, I don't usually use notes, but I couldn't concentrate. I was sitting on Twitter looking at every update, and I couldn't concentrate thinking about how to tell something pithy and funny about storytelling. It seems frivolous when so many things are happening right now, but I took a step back, and there will be another time for storytelling. It's just maybe not right now. But when I say storytelling, what is it that I mean exactly? I mean, maybe you're thinking of bedtime stories. The kind that parents use to scare kids into listening to them. Like Mrs. McDowell telling her son, "A long time ago there was a boy and he didn't listen to his mother. And then he died." But I'm talking about a different kind of story. It's your story. And the story of the person next to you. Why do these stories matter? Well, according to the American writer George Trow, storytelling occurs in 3 spheres. The first is our home, our families, our closest friends. These are our most intimate stories. The second is the world around us, the broader world, but that's mainly inhabited only by presidents and dictators, people who make history. But there's a second space. That's community. It's right in the middle of the other two. And this is where we come into contact with strangers, with people who are different from us. And we are losing that space. And this has consequences I think you can see. And it might even be happening in Egypt. You can see, the way people used to relate to each other outside of their own tight-knit communities. They just don't have it anymore. But we see it everywhere, and I think we see it here, where we have protests and we have counter-protesters and no space for some middle ground. So there are consequences to losing this space for telling our stories. There's a saying in French, and because I have to say, and please forgive my comically atrocious French accent. Tu comprends, c'est tu pardonner. To understand everything is to forgive everything. And we're failing at understanding, and so we're failing at forgiveness. What you say, how is this possible that we don't understand? We know more than anything, everybody in history. Can't we just Google it? Yes. But we don't understand, and because we don't understand, we can't forgive ourselves or our fellow citizens. So why is this happening? The organizers today asked us to think about the role of technology. And I think there are 3 ways that technology and the future is contributing to the loss of this middle space for our stories. To start out, we use fewer words. Maybe we communicate on Twitter and are limited to the number of characters we can use. Although, there's always those people that do the 6-part tweets. That's kind of cheating, right? Or maybe we send tweets or texts to our mother instead of calling because we don't want to spend half an hour listening to her tell us that we don't call enough. Or maybe we don't even use words. What about Pinterest or Instagram, where we just communicate with pictures? Even if you want to hook up with someone, you barely need words on Tinder. just flick right. You still have to talk to them, right? Wait, come on. I mean, so we see more pictures than ever, and they always say pictures are worth 1,000 words, but are they the right words? Sometimes we just spend time creating images to just prove to all of our friends how much fun we're having when they're not there. I mean, how much time has humanity, all of us collectively spent, trying to synchronize our jumps in front of landmarks the world over, just so we could show what a great time we were having at the Eiffel Tower instead of actually having a great time at the Eiffel Tower. And if I have to wait to get the light just right so that it shines on my food before I even take one bite so that I can take the perfect picture, my food's gotten cold. And when these images are created by other people, we forget all these tricks because we don't know the stories of the people that created the images. And does this matter? Yes. I think people, again, they're only putting up images that make their lives seem perfect. And so we can only judge ourselves by that standard. Our bodies are inadequate compared to perfect bodies that we see in Facebook galleries. Even our bedrooms fall short. It never occurred to me that my bedroom could be inadequate until I went on Pinterest. But because we don't know the story behind the pictures, we don't know how much work there is behind it. We don't know what trade-offs there were behind the images. Maybe that person with the perfect beach body has to go to the gym so many hours a day that they don't have time to shower. Yeah, you look really good, but you smell bad. And what could be more boring than somebody that spends their entire life decorating their bedroom? It makes a good picture, but it's a bad life. But the pictures are there. They're tangible evidence of perfection. So we can't help but judge ourselves harshly. We even judge our happiness harshly. We see on Facebook or the internet or wherever that there are so many things going on and we're not invited. We get a sense that something better that we are not party to is out there. Which brings me to the second way that I think technology is causing us to lose this middle space of our community. A few weeks ago, American comedian Robin Williams died. As you probably know, he committed suicide by hanging himself, probably a victim of his own depression. He was loved by so many, and the reaction of mourning was instantaneous. My Facebook feed was full of people saying, "It is so tragic to lose Robin to depression." But some of them even used his first name. But none of my friends, because none of us are famous, not a single one of them knew him personally. Yet each one of them had a friend that was struggling with depression. Somebody that could actually use those sentiments. Somebody that could actually use those support. Now, what is going on here? I mean, there's a study that might explain. The study compared people television watching habits with how many friends they actually had. People who watched the most TV estimated that they had a lot of friends. But the reality was that these people overestimated the number of friends they had. In other words, if you watch the show Friends, you think you have friends. So we take on these stories from the entertainment world, and they make us feel connected. But it's not a real connection. It's a fake friend effect. So remember, we have these three spheres of stories: the connection to our families and our friends, and we always have that, and the connection to the world around us because we've got no choice. But that middle space, I say, that's what we're losing. The third way that I think technology affects our stories is because it allows us to block people out. We've never had a greater capacity to ignore people. We carry technology everywhere, and it used to be you just put on some headphones. But now that your phone can be kind of the size of a flat screen TV, you can literally block people out on the NTR. It goes both ways, though. As you're blocking them out, they're blocking you out. And your vision is no bigger than the screen in front of you, and that screen allows you to tailor exactly what you see. You never have to listen to anybody that doesn't agree with you. Now, in some ways, that's a good thing. I mean, there's a word for people who try to talk to you on public transit, and that word is generally crazy. But aren't there days that you leave your apartment and you say, I wish more than anything that something interesting would happen today? I wish more than interesting that an enticing a strange stranger would meet me today. Maybe that's where the internet can help us. No matter what your interest is, you'll find it there on the internet. I was looking today for examples here, and I discovered if you enjoy chewing ice, there's a message board for people who chew ice. There's a website called Carpets in Airports. It's dedicated to carpets in airports. But to avoid the fake friend effect, you've actually got to use the internet to bring you face-to-face with other people. Face-to-face with your broader community. Face-to-face with strangers. And listen to what they've got to say. This is something that the internet has allowed for my group, Hong Kong Stories, to do in Hong Kong. Every week, we get together in a cafe in Tin Hau. We post it on the boards. We don't know who's going to show up, but when they do, we all just sit and listen to each other tell stories. We wait for them to end. We ask them if they've finished. We can create this kind of space, but you've got to do it. And it's all true stories. It's all things that have happened to us. And you listen. You have to actively listen. Even if you prejudge someone, you have to engage with them as they see themselves when they tell you their story. And at the end of the evening, you feel good. You want to help old aunties carry things down the street. You want to smile at strangers. This is what happens when you have just a small dose of engaging with your community, sharing stories with your community. It makes you feel closer to the city. Now maybe you're thinking, that's great. You get together, you have these events, but what about me? You can live in a Disney movie, but what about me? Well, the thing is, the next time a friend asks you how you are, don't just say, fine. Tell them what you're doing. Really, tell them what you're doing. And maybe you've tried that, and maybe they only pay attention for 10 seconds and then they start looking at their phone. But here's the good news. Everybody can get better at telling stories. I mean, there are a couple quick tips. This is a very short thing, but the first thing is to pick the right story and pick it for the right reasons. Ask yourself, why do I want someone to listen to me? Will it amuse them? Will it change them? Even though you're telling a story about yourself, the act of telling a story is about the listener. It's not about you. There's got to be something in it for the listener. The second thing to remember in this kind of storytelling is that it's not therapy. It's not just dumping all of your problems on your friends or on other people. Chances are this is what you've gotten wrong when your friends have started to look and start playing like Minesweeper or whatever it is. Okay. Your close friends will listen to you for a while when you talk about whether you should break up with your boyfriend. But after a while, they'll start thinking, kill me please, just break up. Audiences want to know that you're thinking about what they want. So what do audiences want? Well, I'll give you a secret. Audiences are assholes. They don't, you guys are lovely. Audiences don't want to hear how perfect your life is. They want to hear you struggle. The most boring stories we hear are like, oh, on my Thai holiday, the sun was shining, it was perfect, and I swam with dolphins. I don't want to hear your dolphin story unless they bit your finger off. Now, you don't need to have a porpoise bite off an appendage to have a story. There are lots of stories, even little things. It doesn't need to be something that's fantastic and big and amazing. It can be a mundane thing. Those make some of the best stories. So don't think I don't have a story, but you've got to have a struggle. In addition to struggle, you've got to be willing to make yourself vulnerable. A good story might be about how a firefighter was brave during a fire. A great story tells you how scared she was and how she would have given anything to be somewhere else. Vulnerability makes our stories relatable because we're all afraid. We're afraid that if we share too much, that people won't like us as much. We're afraid that if we share, that people will turn their backs. Be willing to show it. And then you've got to structure the story, and the end of the stories is the easy part. You usually end with the resolution of your struggle. Why? Again, because audiences are assholes. Once they see you solved your problem, you've got nothing else for them. So generally, after you resolve your problem, you've got about 30 seconds to end before they start tuning out. You can tell this is true when you watch a movie that doesn't have a very clean ending. How many of you have seen the Lord of the Rings movies? Okay, a few. For those of you who haven't, the movie is 3 hours long already. Okay, and then there's these little hobbit guys, and they have to go to the edge of Middle-earth to throw the evil ring into the volcano to save the world from evil. And then they do that. And then the movie doesn't end. They walk back to their little hobbit village, and the movie's still not ending. And then they're really happy in their little hobbit village with their little hairy feet, and then the movie goes another 15 minutes, and it's 20 years later, and they're all really old. And you just start to think, like, I wish we'd thrown the little hobbit guys in the volcano too. So when you tell a story, you've got to bring it up to the resolution. You've got to hide the resolution until the very end. And then the audience should know how it ends until it ends. But then finish and walk away. Now there are a lot of people that will tell you a story has to be this way or that way. That a story has to start with drama and then gradually increase tension until, bam, you have your climax, and then it doesn't matter. That's fine. That's a great way to do a story. But that's not the only way. It's great if you're learning, but you could start with a story that really not much happens. There's only a little struggle. But as long as you tell it in an entertaining way and you think about what the audience needs, the structure will take care of itself. What other things can you do to get better at storytelling? Well, edit. It's like anything else. When you tell a story, it's supposed to sound spontaneous. But editing is what creates spontaneity. If you're adding details, ask yourself, why do I need these details? Do they help you move the story forward? Trust your audience to figure it out. In addition to being assholes, they're also smarter than you think. Cut the details. And add dialogue. It's direct. It brings the audience into the moment. If you wanted to say, she said that I should kiss her, instead, why not just say, she looked at me, kiss me? If you can do accents, voices, do it. Just don't be racist. And then practice, and practice, and practice. And then share, and then listen. It sounds simple, and you might be saying, it's so simple, how can it possibly work? Well, studies show that we really need two things to be happy. We need connection. We need to be with other people. We're social animals. But we also need autonomy. We need to feel like we have choices, that we can shape our lives. We can shape our own identities. And storytelling allows you to reflect on what you've done. It allows you to think about how you feel about what you've done and shape that. But you can't do it alone. You need to do it with other people. So storytelling checks those boxes: connection and autonomy. No wonder it works. Well, that brings us back to the here and now, and the protests and the violence last night. I don't know what motivated the violence. Maybe some people were paid. Maybe some people really were disrupted by the protests, and they are living so close to the edge that they felt like their livelihood was in danger. But the thing is, even if they're thugs, they probably feel like their voices aren't being heard, that they are silent, that they are nobodies, that nobody is paying attention to them. And I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you create a space for all kinds of people to tell their stories. But I do know that the story is the building block to whatever good will happen. Telling a story doesn't stop a punch or pay the bills. I'm not saying that. But when we need to move forward from all of this, and all of this dies down, whatever the situation is, we're going to need a civil society, we're going to need community more than ever. And even the thugs and the creeps and the bad guys, they need forgiveness too. They need a way back into our society. And I think you can find it in storytelling. So I encourage you, find a space that's bigger than you. It's bigger than your family, but it's smaller than the front page of the newspaper. Find community, reflect on your daily life, share your stories, but most of all, don't forget to listen to the person next to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for a wonderful talk, reminding us how technology manipulates how we tell the stories of our lives and the importance of storytelling. Well, I'm also guilty as charged because I was caught Instagramming a photo of the TEDxHKU cupcakes. So, all right. So, when man entered the atomic age, he opened a door into a new world. What we'll eventually find in that new world, nobody can predict. Perhaps from all that you have heard today, and if you have been inspired, you have shaped what you perceive the world to be in the years to come. However, that day is not over.
We have prepared an after party that will last until 8 o'clock at the Global Lounge, so that you may mingle with our speakers, performers, and the rest of the audience. We thank you all for sticking with us to the very end and through our technical delays. And we would like to thank all of our speakers, performers, sponsors, and of course you all for being here with us tonight in the first of many, hopefully, TEDxHKU events to come. Please follow our TED team for directions to the Global Lounge. Thank you all.